Heroes are an inspiring group of people. Every one of them, from the larger-than-life comic book heroes you see on the big silver screen to the everyday heroes that let us live the privileged lives we do. Every hero has a story to tell. The doctor saving lives at your local hospital, the war veteran down the street who risked his lives for our freedom, the police officers and firefighters who risk their safety to ensure ours. Every hero is special and every story worth telling, but there is one class of heroes that I think is often ignored. The entrepreneur, the creator, the producer, the ones who look at the problems in this world and think to themselves, you know what, I can fix that, I can help people, and I can make a difference. Then they go out and do exactly that by creating a new product or introducing a new service. Some go on to change the world, others make a world of difference to their customers. Welcome to The Hero Show. Join us as we pull back the masks of the world's finest heropreneurs and learn the secrets to their powers, their success, and their influence, so you can use those secrets to attract more sales, make more money, and experience more freedom in your business. I'm your host, Richard Matthews, and we are on in 3, 2, 1. Okay, hello and welcome back to The Hero Show. My name is Richard Matthews, and I am here on the line with Sue Fennessey, founder of We Are 8. Sue, are you there?
Yes, great to be here, Richard. Thank you.
Awesome, glad to have you here. So We Are 8 is a social media marketplace that enables brands to sponsor people directly, transforming their relationships with customers at scale. Seems like a really cool system. One of the things I want to sort of get started with, we start with this on every one of our shows, is basically what are you known for now, right? So and talk a little bit about what you, Sue, are known for and what We Are 8 is known for, and why is it that people come to you guys?
So what I'm personally known for, I don't know, I'm probably not the best person to answer that. I'm hanging in the neck to all my team actually and driving things forward. I do think I'm known as a disruptor in the marketplace, and not for pure disruption's sake. Traditionally, we see and I see gaps in the market, and the thing that we've seen and the reason that we created AID is that essentially people have built Facebook and all the social media platforms. So last year, Facebook made $55 billion from the work and the creativity of the people.
Yeah.
And yet the largest voice on the platform and those that actually are the product aren't in that economic equation. So we saw in my previous company, which was a data company that I built, that tracked all the ad spend across the ecosystem, we were looking at all of this money shift to social media, and yet the people who were actually creating the value weren't in the economic equation. And it's that imbalance of value equation is the reason that we started AID. We saw the power of the people and the individuals who were creating all the value and wanted to put them at the center of the economic equation.
Yeah,
so that's really
it seems like it's almost worse than that too, because the creators on the platform, if you want to continue to get attention for the value you're creating, you have to pay Facebook for that privilege.
Absolutely. So not just the value of you're absolutely right. And it horrifies me even to see big social impact and causes and charities even having to pay to speak to their own audiences that they've gently nurtured and built over the last 10, 13 years.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's really fascinating. So how has that been going, right? So it seems like that's a big goal to disrupt something like social media.
Yeah, and we're not actually wanting to disrupt it. We're wanting to create a framework that can run alongside the existing platforms that are clearly here to stay for a while, to run alongside that to give people a voice and a stake in the economics. Because, there are more people on Facebook than actually vote in any of our elections globally. And
it's crazy.
They never have a united voice. There's no kind of union structure to keep Facebook in check. The social networks are largely unregulated, and yet they control our democracies. And so what we've built is a framework we see the economic value first, and then the collective voice of the people really gives essentially a united voice structure to social media, so that so that these platforms who are unregulated can really act in the best interests of their largest stakeholders, which is the people.
So how does it actually work from a technical level? Like, so, we could use, this show as an example, right? I'm a new show working on building an audience and stuff like that. How does something like We Are Eight affect what I'm doing?
Yeah. So the value to the brands, in this case, your show would be the brand, is that you can activate people and essentially sponsor them to advocate for you. So the way it works inside AID is that our data engine enables us to micro-target the right people, specific people, send them a sponsorship, and on AID you can get sponsored just to watch something by brands. So brands test a lot of their ad campaigns on AID, but you can get sponsored to create something for a brand. So you could create something for Calvin Klein or any number of brands, create a piece of content that the brand could use across their social channels, or you can sponsor someone to share a piece of content. So you could essentially give 1,000 people in your target audience a piece of content about your show and then sponsor them to share it out across their social network. I'll share it out across my social network for you, Richard.
Yeah, that's
So
really interesting. So as a brand, you can attach economic value to the social actions that you want your audience to take.
that's right. And people essentially become your largest and most powerful media channel. That's
That's
right. So traditionally, I would just, the only way I can reach people at scale, I would put in an ad on Facebook.
Yeah.
I can actually have a direct, and when I do that, by the way, I don't have the direct relationships with the person.
No.
So now I can actually reach out to them through AID. We enable that direct connection, which is actually what the AID is. And then they get sponsored by the brand. The person's feeling really good. They can then share that out through AID onto their social networks, and our system tracks and reports the performance.
That
So
is
for brands,
super cool.
thank you. So what traditionally has been, we've seen celebrities get sponsored, we've seen YouTubers, then we saw influencers, now we're seeing micro influencers. Our technology is just bringing that to the masses, because
Yeah,
we
so
believe
anyone can get sponsored.
everyone can get sponsored, everyone has influence. The idea that I can pay off my debit card, I can pay off my mobile phone bill. It's like a side hustle. For most people, watching, creating, and sharing for a couple of hours over a month, it's not a full-time job, but
Mhm.
it might be $30, $40, $100 over the course of the month that I can use to boost my
Yeah.
income.
So it's a win-win kind of thing, which is the best economic situation, right? When everyone is valuing equally from the stuff they're putting in, right? So I can see the value for the people who are doing the sharing, and you see the value for the brands that are actually asking for the sponsorships, and I assume you can like look for specific types of people as a brand, that I'm looking for this type of audience to get these types of people to sponsor for me and that kind of stuff.
Fully. So at the end of the day, we're repping people. So the individual is giving us the basic data about themselves, so we can then help represent them to the brand. So if a brand wants to target, women in New York City, in these particular demos, and with these particular attributes, we can target them. So it's like targeting them with
Man.
a face.
I have a supplement company too, and I'm just like, man, that just seems like money in the bank.
What's exciting is, we've always been overlooked as people. We've always been seen as the viewer, the recipient, the one who has to pay for our subscriptions, pay for our mobile phone bill, and we've watched Silicon Valley and all the tech companies use us to get rich.
Yeah.
At the 99%, again, are fueling the 1%. So it's very power to the 99%.
It's the economic equation on the internet since basically the advent of Yahoo and Google has been an ad-supported internet, where it's basically saying, we will give you content, we will give you search, we will give you access to these things in exchange for using you as the product to advertisers, right? And that's
exactly.
yeah, that's been the
exactly.
yeah, that's been that's been the economic equation on the internet for, since almost since the inception. And we as the people accepted that because it's, we get free access to all these things, and free in the sense that we're not spending our money for it. We're instead giving ourselves, right, our data and our activity and that kind of stuff. And you see that's it's a big talking point nowadays in tech is who's the product, right? Is it the person who's watching it, and who's the customer, right? So on Facebook and on Google and on Twitter, the user of the platform is the product and the customer is the advertiser.
That's right. It's that injustice. Look, there was a time very early on these platforms, and we forget that Facebook had that line, "We're free and always will be," was their tagline. And there was a time when it felt new and great that I could connect with my family and friends on this platform, and there felt like a very fair value exchange. But as they've bought more and more advertisers and they're making more and more money, and we're the product, for the last 5, 6, 7 years, the value exchange has felt very unjust. And it's that injustice that we recognize, combined with, 40% of all Americans, this is a Federal Reserve statistic, 40% of all Americans cannot find $400 in an emergency.
Yeah, I was just reading that the other day.
I mean, we're in a very difficult economic position. And whether it's someone in America or whether it's someone in Africa or whether it's someone in India or South America or wherever, we need to start building infrastructures with the changing workforce that put more value on just the raw humanness of an individual. So what we're recognizing their innate power just for doing what they're doing anyway.
Yeah. So do you run into any terms of service issues with Facebook or Twitter or anything like that where you're actually paying for these kind of sponsorships?
No. So look, our goal is to be collaborative with them, because we want people to be recognized more on these platforms. I think Google with YouTube set a good model when, they do share the revenue with the people that YouTube. It's just most normal people, the masses, really watch YouTube. So they're not recipients of it. So we're taking that a step further and saying that, well, as people, we have innate value. We should be recognized and empowered and being part of that economic.
There is value in that when I ask one of my subscribers to share this show or to introduce me to someone new, like there's a value to that. And you're just recognizing that with dollar signs.
That's right. That's exactly right. And with social impact. So on our platform, every time a brand sponsors someone, the individual gets the bulk of that money, but 5% of the transaction also goes through to a charity of choice. So, for example, if ConAgra, Healthy Choice sponsored an individual, 5% also goes through to Feeding America. So at the same time as I'm making money, I'm making impact.
And I say one of my here, I'll show you. I have a supplement brand as well, and one of the things that we do is every bottle we sell of our supplements, we donate enough money to Vitamin Angels to basically save the life of a child, because vitamin A is like the leading cause of death in children around the world. And it's the leading cause of preventable death in children under 6 years old around the world. About 115,000 kids a year die from it. And basically we donate enough to pay for vitamin A for one child with every bottle that we sell. So you could actually in your social impact stuff. So does the brand get to choose the charity that it goes to?
Yes, so the brand gets to choose. So if you wanted to choose Vitamin Angels and then have sponsor 1,000 people to share out this supplement messaging, a video, and then our system automatically adds a unique code as well. Or you might just want to sponsor 1,000 people to create content for you, or watch a piece of content. Whatever you ask them to do, you choose the charity and that goes through. Once the person makes money, I can also within the app then choose to pay it forward to a charity. So then it's my choice.
I feel like I need to download this app.
I think you do too.
I do. We need this. So anyone who's watching, that's what you should be doing. It's called We Are 8.
Yeah.
There we go. It pops right up. We Are 8. Get creative, get paid.
We really imagine a world where, look, people really don't like ads. Ad blockers is such a huge thing. And we see sponsorship as a way to fund and fuel our lives whilst deterring, blocking all the ads. So, I mean, we imagine a world where students, millennial mums, people are actually just funding their lives, and we imagine everyone getting sponsored by the brand that they love.
Yeah,
I actually
you're seeing a drive towards that with people not liking the ads, right? So Netflix, you pay for the subscription and have no ads. Apple TV just announced their platform that's you purchase the content without the ads. Apple Music and Spotify and Pandora, they all have pay for to listen to music without the ads. And what is it? The like every major platform outside of your social media ones, which rely on the ads, are building platforms that allow people to pay in exchange for not having ads, and they're growing, right? Which means there's a demand for it.
Absolutely. And I was reading this morning that Netflix, Hulu are growing, but I think people are at a threshold of we're paying for pay TV, and AT&T is starting to see the effects of this that it was just announced. Actually, they were really hit this quarter, and they expect the second half to. It's dipped under a 1% decline on pay TV cable cutting. So we think as people are stretched to pay for cable TV, Netflix, Hulu.
There's a limited amount of subscriptions you can have.
That's exactly right. Spotify, everything else. So what we think is going to happen, and what we're fueling is a framework whereby, I could have Gatorade and Vans fund my Netflix subscription. Or when Disney launches their new subscription platform, or when any of these, Warner Media launch theirs, we think the most powerful model is have my specific brands that want to sponsor me fund and fuel my subscription platform. So essentially, the goal is for enough money to be shifted back to the individual person so that it can fund my mobile phone bill, whatever it is, $40 a month or whatever. My subscriptions, maybe one or two of my subscriptions, maybe a Netflix and Spotify or whatever, and maybe I make a tiny bit of impact as well through that. So if I'm able to fund a couple of those basic things just by doing what I'm doing anyway, maybe I can fund some of my college books or pay off a little bit of my debit card. Those kind of things really can boost my life.
Yeah, it's like you've turned social interaction into a sharing economy type deal, right? Like the Airbnb and yeah. So you've turned the social interactions, sort of like the fabric of what we're doing online, into the same type of RV share or Airbnb where that has value.
Absolutely, and that's a great way of putting it. And what's interesting is people don't accept sponsorships because everyone innately understands their personal brand. If our data engine targets the right people with the right brand, that's what the whole matching algorithms are about. but people also don't accept sponsorships from brands that they don't love and that don't fit with their personal brand. So that's a wonderful automated regulation system inside the framework, because people know if they share something with their followers and it's inauthentic, it doesn't work. So
Yeah.
they only things that they love.
Yeah. It's like, I'm just thinking about it, like if just brands that I personally don't like or don't approve of, I wouldn't sponsor that. Like, I wouldn't accept a sponsorship from them, right? Because it just doesn't line up. So
Fully.
that's awesome. So what I want to do is talk a little bit more about you and what brought you to this place, right? So we talk a lot about about sort of the superhero idea for entrepreneurs, and obviously the We Are Eight is a fantastic company that you've built, and I will probably be a customer before the day is out. um, so tell me about you personally. What do you think your superpower is? What is it that you bring to the table that's allowed you to create this kind of a system?
I see big broken things and get obsessed with them and obsessed with the solution on how we can solve it, particularly where there's an injustice. And this in particular, we see the workforce dramatically changing over the next 10 years, say 30. The workforce is going to be removed. So there's dramatic changes in the world. And then I look at some of the biggest problems with poverty, the environmental issues, and I'm genuinely concerned about those things. So we need, and I can't see anywhere else in the world where we can access $300 billion potentially, because that's how much is spent on advertising all
Oh
around
yeah.
the world. $300 billion. So, and 55 billion of that went to Facebook last year. So I look at many of these big global challenges can be solved, but we're not working as a united force. And so I see how broken that model is. The people doing the work aren't rewarded. All of this money in the ecosystem, some massive problems that need to be solved, and become obsessed with fixing them. And so I think it's outside of myself. In some ways, I feel like everything I've done over the last 30 years has kind of led to this, because I often don't think you choose things; they choose you.
Yeah. So, so it sounds like one of my core beliefs for a long time has been that the biggest problems that we face as humanity are going to be solved by entrepreneurs who come in and see ways to turn that in, to create those win-win situations that solve the problems. And it sounds like you're on the forefront of some of those big problems.
Well, I hope so, because we really need them. We really need them fixed. I think that look, I think there's some incredible people out there doing incredible work that truly inspire me. But it's actually even our team. It's every one of these people that are on our platform really doing amazing work. I think we've got a changing generational mindset. People that really care about the planet, that care about sustainability, that want to do things that make impact. And so my job is really to just harness all those brilliant people and bring them together in a way that can create a framework to solve some of those problems. It's not, I worry sometimes about some of the technology that we're not thinking about the larger social impact.
Mm-hmm.
We think about the impact that Facebook could make on our democracy globally, for example, and yet they have had a huge impact on that. So we need to set up infrastructures that create some sort of regulatory environment as well as economic impact.
Awesome. So one of the things I wanted to talk a little bit about is what brought you, like what started your entrepreneurial journey, right? So we talk about it as your origin story, right? So every hero has one. It's like where you started to realize that maybe you were different, maybe you could change things. Where did that start for you? Is it something that started early, or is it something that you just got into when you started this company? Like how did that go for you?
Uh, the entrepreneurial road is it's a pretty tough one. Often, I mean, I don't. I think it has to be innately in you. So I had a company started when I was 21, which now I look back and think, oh my god, I don't think I knew anything. But I saw things that were broken, and I really wanted to help companies. But I think even from a very young age, I mean, with this in particular, I grew up in a very small part of Melbourne, Australia. And I used to get home from school, and my mum and dad were working, and I'd cook dinner on quite a few nights. And I would set up a pretend camera and create a cooking show and host that cooking show. But honestly, it was completely isolating. There was no camera, it was all just imagination. And I would imagine this shoot that I could put any excess food down and it would whiz off into Africa and feed people. And this was all in my imagination. But I felt extremely isolated. The area that I lived in, I thought, God, how am I ever going to escape this? How am I ever going to escape this world and bring some of the things that are in my imagination to life? And I used to talk to the TV, imagining that they could talk back. But I think about now what we've built with aid. If I was that little girl, I could have my mobile phone. I could do some cooking videos. I could get sponsored by Barilla Pasta or whoever, and I could make social impact. And then as I grew, I could start to have my own voice and imagine what was beyond that. So I think eight is honestly even though we're seeing the injustice and the desperate need for people to be economically empowered, I think that need to for people to be able to share their voices and be recognized for the power that they have is always been honestly
So it's
my
something that started when you were a kid with your imagination, and has taken these number of years to get to the point where you've actually built something that's doing exactly that.
yeah, there have been three companies before this, though. So over the time, I built a company in Australia that essentially it was the same mission. It was to connect brands with consumers at scale, but we did that in a marketing framework. And I had most recently a data company, which is what brought me to the US, where we tracked ad spend and built data infrastructures inside all of the media agencies. So that taught me about data, taught me about marketing, taught me about. I built a company in China, musical to China with Lloyd Webber, again seeing gaps and trying to connect brands and people. So all of that 30 years really gave me the framework to build what I think is desperately needed, which is a direct marketplace for brands and consumers to get the money flowing back to people and the causes that they care about.
Yeah, that's really fascinating, and it's fascinating that you've gone. So a lot of us take small stepping stones in our entrepreneurial journey. You built three big companies on your journey to build what you're doing now, which is crazy. And I say crazy in a good way, right? It's the kind of thing that you have to have. What do they call it? The chutzpah, the guts to do. And you've obviously done that and used, I've built a couple of companies as well. They've all been small, but they're each one of them is like you learn something and you move forward until you get to doing the thing that you really love doing, that you have a passion for. So um, it's cool to see that on a large scale with a company like what you're doing.
Thank you. And look, the status quo, no matter how big we think these companies are, no matter how great, government governments can't move quickly enough to regulate. The brands honestly aren't happy with the status quo. They want a more transparent supply chain. And people, as people wake up to their innate power and actually how we're being used and bought and sold, the status quo can't keep existing. So we're here just to accelerate that and channel it into a framework that brings value to people and value to brand.
So do you think this is interesting because one of the things that Apple has been doing is they've been very loudly talking about the same issue, right? That when you buy an Apple product, you're the customer, you're not something that we advertise to, and they have obviously a huge multi-billion person platform. Do you think that's helping their message is helping you guys grow as well? Because they're shining light on that issue?
It's really interesting. I haven't thought about it like that, actually. But it could, and we should probably talk about that more. I think, look, these are the issues that we're addressing are really global issues.
Yeah.
And the fact, right, they are talking about it does really help. I think a lot of the big tech companies started out with good intention, and now they're scrambling to work out how they keep their shareholders happy who are driving for profitability, and how to keep their users and I mean, I even struggle with the name user, to be honest. It's so dehumanizing, and I think that's a big challenge for these companies because they are so pressured by shareholders.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I like the hit on that language piece too, because you see a difference in companies that refer to the people on the platform as users versus customers, right? And because it's hitting on that same issue, right? That on Facebook you're not their customer, right? You're a user of the platform, and me as an advertiser, I'm the customer, right? Because I'm the one who pays the bills over there. So all their decisions are made for me, for my benefit.
Exactly. And it serves me to keep people like that. If they're the user, we bring the service, it keeps everyone placated. As soon as I empower them, then goodness, they might start demanding things, or they might start to, want reward. And so some of the biggest challenges are how we keep people happy and rewarded and valued on these big platforms that have made money off people for such a long time, and how these public companies can change and amend their business model. And that's really why we see we're not going up against the social platforms. We see ourselves as a framework that can run alongside the social platforms, but that value the people. So
Absolutely.
Keep the platform as it is, but give people back a united voice and economic power in this parallel framework.
That's awesome. So we talked a little bit about your superpowers a minute ago. If we talk about the other side of superpower, it's the fatal flaw. And the fatal flaw is, like Superman has his kryptonite, Batman's not actually a superhero. If you could look back at what you've done over the years and say, hey, this is one of the things that's held me back, what would you say it is? And how have you sort of overcome that to achieve what you've achieved so far?
Oh, God, there are so many things.
Aren't there always?
I think part of this is constantly putting people around you that challenge what you're doing. And I think for any entrepreneur, it's if you really see that there is a massive problem that you're solving, and the market is going to shift, and that the market is sizable and big, it's staying true to that. It's being resilient, and that's really tough. It's putting the right people around you. It's making sure you have the right people around you. again, with the flaws, you probably should ask my team. I can get too obsessive. I can talk too much sometimes when I should listen. My husband would also say that. He always says to me every night, "How many questions did you ask in the meetings that you were in today?" So he's really taught me, constantly be asking questions because I can get too obsessive about how I think things could be or potential that people have when either they're not ready to step into it or whether the world's not ready for it. So timing is a really big part of this. And then I've always really failed at VC funding in all my companies. So my first company I bootstrapped. Second company, I had a strategic investor. Third company, I bootstrapped and then got private equity. So, and this company we have an incredible group of incredible shareholders and investors who are world class, but I've never done well at the VC landscape. And that's always challenged me. So I've often thought about how I could have done that better, how I could have been better at telling the story in a way that they understood and sharing the market. People are starting to really wake up now, but it takes, we've invested a huge amount of money in the infrastructure, and so I think there's many things that I don't think it's one fatal flaw. I think it's multiple flaws that you constantly keep in check.
Yeah, that you're working on. So like I really like the you talk about talking too much and not listening, asking enough questions. Because I know as entrepreneurs, this tends to be a pretty common problem where, especially when you get to the point where you have a team, or if you're making that transition from being a solopreneur into having a team, you're used to just having just the one voice and you don't have to ask a lot of questions. You just sort of barrel forward. So can you talk for a minute about how you've been making that change? Like how do you keep that forefront and realize that you have to, especially when you start building a team, use the team to the best of their ability, and a lot of that is going to be, asking those questions, getting their opinion, and letting them move the business forward, and not being the bottleneck, right? Because the real issue there is that if you're the one who's doing all the talking, you're the bottleneck in the company.
Absolutely. And so for me, it's being very disciplined about it. It's asking questions every day and empowering those people to make the decisions, move things forward. And then my job really is just setting the vision, helping get stuff done, and then driving everything forward. But if you've got really strong people in all the key roles, which takes time to get, right? So you end up being, part head of sales, part head of product, part head of tech, working on the infrastructure until you get the best person possible into that role. Or, operations, you get the best person into that role and then you can pull back more from that. That's part of the joy of bringing a great team to life, right? So I just get really super disciplined about it. And where I see holes, I jump in and then pull back. I think with any entrepreneur, you've got to hold that vision, constantly think, should I be doing this? Prioritizing, because every second counts more with a small business than anywhere. And we've got really massive goals. We believe in the next 4 years, 30 to 40% of people under 40 will be getting sponsored in some form. So these are massive. The market for this is absolutely massive.
It's humongous.
Huge. So we've been I feel like I've been preparing a lifetime for this role and to create a framework to represent people at scale. So it's constantly working on yourself. It's realizing that you don't truly know anything, and you have to be because the market is changing so fast, technology is changing so fast. But the things that stay consistent are people's behavior, people's desire to be recognized, to be valued. Because I often say, actually, people don't want data. I'm prepared to give up my data because I actually don't know how to sell it anyway. Who would buy Sue's data? But what I do want is I want anyone that wants to buy it, I want to know who they are. I want to know how it's used. I want to be recognized. I want to feel valued, and I want to make money and impact. If we deliver on, so we kind of translate people's data into a framework that they value. And if we stay true to the human commitment so that the people are getting rewarded, then that can only scale.
You guys are going to be a multi-billion-dollar company before too long.
Well, I hope so. I mean, the goal is to because what that means is that the people are getting the money.
Yeah.
By every dollar that brands shift, it means money is going into the pockets of the people. And that really excites me because we need frameworks that funnel that money back and that give people a really good side hustle that makes them feel great and valued.
Yeah, and you're going to change that economic equation where 40% of Americans don't have an extra $400. You'll create that $400 for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
and that's what we want to smash. I love the way you articulated that, actually, because that $400, if you spend an hour a day, once things really get rolling, less than an hour a day, actually 20 minutes a day, you should be able to make up by watching, creating, sharing. So you're not living paycheck to paycheck. You've got a bit of a buffer and having fun in the process. There's something great about by existing, I'm making social impact.
Yeah, I like it. I like that thing. So normally we talk. One of the next questions is your common enemy, right? As an entrepreneur, what your common enemy is, and we've talked a lot about that on the show so far. But it's removing something from someone's life. If you could just go in with your magic wand and remove that, it sounds to me like what you're removing, or what you wish you could remove, is that idea that people's data is not valuable, or they don't understand the value of it. And if you could go in and just help them see that value, like we've already covered it basically. But is that essentially what you're looking to do?
Yeah, I love the way you're articulating things. Actually, I can tell that you're an entrepreneur. it's being able to, the idea that someone could, just as part of their daily life, wake up and be checking their Instagram feed, and then check their aid feed and see what brands want to sponsor them, spend a couple of minutes watching a few videos, or on their way to work, share something, and then make money while they're doing that. They're making then fund their Spotify or their Netflix subscription or their mobile phone bill. It's actually creating a construct we're not wanting to eliminate, we're wanting to take away a little bit of the stress and create that daily habit that de-stresses me as I wake up to my inherent value. Because I think something I'm going to use, for a tech person, I'm going to use an untech term. I think something quite magical happens when someone else believes in us, and when we know that when we know that A is out there fighting every day to get brands to shift dollars to get them back into your pocket. That's what we do every day, and our team does every day. There's something.
Yeah, you're working on transferring the ad spend.
That's right. So we wake up to our power because we suddenly feel valued for just being ourselves. In a world where, honestly, Instagram does create that. How many likes do we have? How many whatevers do we have? The idea that we can be valuable just for being us and make impact just for being us is fantastic. Because it's not forcing me into something that I think I should be. There's something innately beautiful about the value of the human being that we need now more than ever.
Yeah, and it's was what I think is so fascinating about what you're doing is that you hear talk about, especially in the tech spaces with the networks, is the network, the power of the network grows as more people join the network, right? And so the reason why Instagram got bought for $1 billion by Facebook is because of the numbers they had. And one of the things I talk about all the time on this show and anytime that I do teaching is this idea that groups of people don't exist, right? So if you look at a group, right, this group of people who use Instagram, a group and any audience, any words that we use like that they're not a thing, right? It's the same type of word as cold, right? So hot is a cold is just a descriptor we use to describe a certain level of heat. And groups or networks or audiences are words we use to describe sets of individuals. And what you're doing is you're saying we need to stop looking at them as groups and start looking at these networks as a set of individual human beings who have value, and the network needs to recognize that value. And that's what you guys are doing.
I love your articulation of that. And it's the one, and then it's the power of the united, because I think groups also don't ever total up on these social platforms. So Facebook, in their desire to stay neutral, some pretty heavy political and, terrorist groups have thrived on these platforms, So we have a point of view, and we are all about unite both you as an individual having your innate power and helping you fuel that, but then as a united group, because we never see Facebook calling out to 2 billion people to you join us in doing X, right?
Yeah.
Because there's something very powerful in that. I mean, even if we were to look at, there's 800 million people on the planet today that don't have fresh water, right? Which is a terrible thing. And it would cost about $30 billion to start really give that a good dent, which $30 billion is about 10% of the total advertising ecosystem. But imagine for a minute that there was a brand, Coca-Cola, who wanted to commit to getting everyone on the planet fresh water. What's exciting about that on aid is they could sponsor people to share a video about Coca-Cola's commitment to getting everyone fresh water, and then unite and galvanize everyone around that movement in a way that Facebook never do. And for everyone that Coke sponsor, they could also make a donation to do this. So the idea that I could be part of something, not just where I'm personally making economic impact, but I'm part of a framework that can drive real change in the world, because Facebook purposefully doesn't ever bring us together as a humanity on the planet, and in fact have thrived off the frictions and the filter bubbles and everything that exists.
Yeah,
if
and
anything, we don't.
What do you call it? The echo chambers that they create for us.
Absolutely, it actually is. It's creating more barriers between us all rather than uniting us. So even though the economic empowerment is kind of the starting point and a fundamental right that we
and it changes the equation too, because as a brand, the value is in getting the click or in getting the share, and since the share is not inherently valuable to the person doing the sharing, we have to, as a marketer, you have to incentivize it with a headline or with an emotion, right? And you have to get emotions that'll get the click, that'll get the share. And the ones that work are fear and curiosity, and there's a specific culture that it's creating because the value is not in the action, the value is in the response of the user, right? And it's the way it's being compensated. So what you guys can do, and where like, oh man, that's super, super cool, is now the value is in the actual, is in the I, as a brand, I can incentivize the action itself, right? I don't have to incentivize the emotion um, in order to get the click. So I can actually say, I'm really interested in you sharing our Tiger Bites multivitamin because we save the life of a child with every bottle that we save, right? And you don't have to I don't have to have a clickbaity headline. I don't have to have a fear tactic headline. I can just, we have a cool product and I'll pay you to share it, right? There, because there's the value of that action.
That's exactly right. And when you add the social impact piece to that, their followers, the engagement it gets is very personalized, positive, impactful, because I know that I'm happy for you that you're getting sponsored and I love that product. Oh, and it's making social impact. I love them even more. You know,
Yeah.
that
It
very
engenders the feelings that the brand wants about their brand. All right.
that's right.
And
That's
so what's interesting to me too is like there's actually I have personal data on that from this company. When we started doing that, we were making we went from 5 or 6 sales a day to 20 or 30 sales a day when we added added our branding that we were donating to a good cause with our sales, right? So, because it makes people feel good, right? And we actually started a whole campaign around it that, where you shop matters, right? Because it does, and it, depending on who you buy from. So it, like, for us, there's as a brand, it makes economic sense to have social impact as part of the fabric of your company.
fully. Fully. I mean, and I think Unilever have really been seeing that. Their brands, the B Corp brands like Seventh Generation, Ben
Yeah.
and Jerry's are growing at double digit. Whereas, and so they've made it a mandatory part of their business agenda, because it's not just good business, it's really good for bottom line results. But
Yeah.
we're really seeing that in just consumer response. People really demand. I think unless you stand for something as a brand, unless you're going to sponsor the people that support you and have a point of view, support a charity or support a cause or stand for something, you're going to be in real problem. You're going to have real problems having a connection with consumers.
That's awesome. So, I think we've gotten through a lot of my questions on those things. Talk a little bit about one of the things that we talk about all the time is your hero's tool belt, right? And every entrepreneur has their tools they use on a regular basis. Thor has his magical hammer, right? Your neighborhood police officer has his bulletproof vest. Maybe it's just, Evernote or Trello. What is it that you use on a regular basis that sort of allows you guys to do and build what you're building over here at We Are 8?
So there's lots of components to the tech engine. Obviously, the algorithm, we use data storage. So all of these infrastructures allow us to provide scaled infrastructure in a brand safe, moderated way. So there's, data storage, video serving, all of these technology components we've architected into one framework that have become a big part of this. The authentication, the moderation of everyone, all of that, which enables us to scale, as well as the ability to share content out. So there's everything in the infrastructure. But I actually think the nothing beats and even though we're constantly looking at new technology all the time, nothing is human connection. So for us, it's actually having, physical things that invite the voice of the people. It's utilizing the phone and actually calling people and talking to people. It's the older technologies that I really love and that are getting lost. Look, all the new stuff that enable us to serve sponsorships quickly, serve the videos, data storage, all of that, all the algorithms, doing the matching, all of that. We couldn't have built 8 without all that technology. But it's the older technology that are getting lost, and yet with them, it's using a phone to speak to someone, you know, as
Yeah.
opposed to just play a game or go on Facebook. I was actually talking to someone yesterday and they said, "Oh, I'll email you that." And I said, "But can you just tell me? Because I'm standing right here." So, and let's talk about it, because I think that all these movements towards total technology solutions, we're losing our humanity and losing ourselves. So,
Yeah.
whilst I'm pushing for technology, pushing for technology that restores our humanity, because I don't. We are very close to losing it.
Yeah.
You know, what seem acceptable and think is acceptable now, I
It's,
don't
we
think.
we have a choice as people, right? Are we going to continue going down this path, losing our humanity, or are we going to make some changes on things, right? That's one of the things I love about like some of the changes in technology is things like, you know, we're here on Google Hangouts, so we use Zoom all the time at our company, right? Where how much like technology has enabled the phone call that used to be an old analog signal that got sent over wires that, you know, that was limited and didn't have great quality, that kind of stuff, where the phone call nowadays, I don't actually know where you are. You sound like you're in Australia, but you um, in New York. Okay, so you're in New York, I'm in California, right? But you have, you know, phone calls can happen like this all over the world, and I don't know, it's changed the game a little bit and allows us to bring some of that face-to-face and humanity back at scale, which I think is a great way to look at technology. Is how can you use technology to enhance the human connection instead of replace it?
That's right. And how can we use all technologies to enhance human connection? Which I've got to say, as a female technology person, um, I think this is where men and women working together is so powerful, because women do bring unique perspectives to things, and the importance of pulling back and think, okay, if we do that, what is the broader outcome of that going to be? And
Yeah.
how can we use it in a way that makes it's for good?
Yeah, that's one of the one of the reasons I love being married to my wife, right? Is because every decision I make, I bring it to her first. So I'm like, hey, what am I not seeing here before I blow something up, right?
Really, with my husband. I mean, that's what great partnership is, right?
Yeah.
Fully.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, that goes all the way down to, you know, the team you have in a marriage to the team that you build at a company. When you actually get the roles filled with people that are going to help you see from all the different angles, it's such an important aspect of building a company or building a family.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, even, I mean, we're lucky enough to have a really great advisory board who come at things from all different angles and have really unique perspectives. I think getting out of your own way and having a very clear vision, but then constantly challenging every element of it.
So I have a question for you on that, right? Because I know one of the things that I do with my business partner all the time, which frustrates my wife, because she doesn't see it the same way, is we will take an idea and we'll beat the hell out of it, right? And argue about it and go back and forth over something. And we find that endlessly fascinating. But my wife is like, I don't know how you guys don't hate each other. So do you have, you know, right? But as an entrepreneur, it's one of the things that you have to do. Like your ideas have to stand up to scrutiny, right? And
Yeah.
especially when you have a big company or a large team with a lot of perspectives on that, how do you sort of deal with how do you, because when you attack an idea, like that's part of the process of growing something is to make sure that ideas can stand up to scrutiny from multiple people and multiple angles. That has some of that built in, like the contention can feel negative to an outsider, but you know it's
Yeah.
like it's a positive part of that. How do you guys deal with that on the team?
Yeah. Look, to outsiders, there looks like our team, I've got to say, I feel very, very lucky, because everyone is committed to a high goal. So we really don't have the politics. And because everyone's committed to just delivering a great product, there can be, and everyone respects each other because they know that they're good at their stuff. So it's the arguments can really happen. What about if, and it's the only way something can grow if you're constantly challenging it,
Yeah.
constantly challenging the product, and then we get it to market as quickly as we can to get the feedback from as many people, which is one of the reasons the Watch and Respond sponsorship offer came out, because we wanted, even digital content, we wanted to get it to people really quickly to see how they reacted. So
Yeah.
look, the arguments are good, Richard, as you know.
Yeah,
And
so it's interesting. It's how do you create that culture where the arguments are good and they don't stop progress, they enhance progress.
So that's part of my job and leader's job, right? So you've got to land the plane. Guys, we've got to reach a decision on this. We've got to land the plane and then test it. And if we get it wrong, we twist, because that's the amazing thing, actually. Often it's not even the people in the discussion that will have the perfect solution. We'll only get that feedback from either brands or consumer or people when we market. So we've got to land it as best we can and then be really nimble and adapt.
So what's interesting, one of my favorite authors, Orson Scott Card, he wrote the Ender's Game series. If you read his books, at the end of every book, he has a chapter he puts together that is just him talking about the process of writing. And in one of his books, I can't remember which one it is, but he talked about how, as an author, he never writes a complete story. He writes a portion of a story that's completed when someone reads it and interacts with it, and it comes alive in their mind. Right? And what I've always taken that back to entrepreneurship, that we only ever build half a product, right? And the other half of the product is put together when our customer or our consumer makes use of it. And so you only, as an entrepreneur, as someone who's building and developing something new, you only can ever get halfway there until you ship. And then once you ship, then you can actually develop the rest of the product and see how it comes alive in the marketplace.
I love that. And I'm going to read that book. I love that, because we've amended our onboarding. We're just in the process of doing it again. You know, and we've got a lot of really good UX people, but you're evolving, refining, and sharpening the message, particularly with something that's big, you know, like a big platform like this. We, the people, have inherent value. We help you, monetize yourselves. That's a sort of a big, bold message that also has to be fun and engaging. So absolutely, it's constantly being refined, and our audience, our people, the people that we represent are constantly helping us refine that.
Yeah. Well, and man, I love how you guys are putting the value on both sides of that equation. The advertisers and the brands have the value, and the customers have the value, and you're looking to connect those together. It's super cool.
Are you tired of trying to write webinars that don't consistently convert? How would you like to have a webinar that effortlessly created sales in your online business? You can. Introducing the Webinar Alchemy Workshop. Webinar Alchemy Workshop is an online masterclass that will help you write incredibly persuasive webinars for your online courses quickly and easily. Using what you learn in this class, you can build a webinar that educates your entire audience while still creating sales. For a limited time, you can purchase this masterclass for only $7, and you'll get the exact framework I've personally used to help my clients sell more than $1 million worth of online coaching and training just over the last year. Simply text the word alchemy, ALCHEMY, to 444-999, and I'll send you all the details.
The music is by Purple Planet Music. Visit www.purple-planet.com.
I'm going to move forward just a little bit. I've only got a couple more questions here on the interview outline. And one of them is your own personal heroes, right? So, Frodo had Gandalf, Luke had Obi-Wan, Robert Kiyosaki has Rich Dad. Who were some of your heroes? Were they real-life mentors? Were they speakers or authors? Were they peers that were just a few years ahead of you? And how important were they to you building what you've built?
I'm going to sound like such a nerd.
We're a whole crew of nerds here, so.
I am a nerd. So growing up in Australia hanging off the end of the planet, early stage, watching television evolve and create and get created. I was there. Went from a black and white television to a color television. And I imagine speaking to the characters inside the shows, which we can now do
Hmm.
effectively which is so so all of the technologists, the older school technologists that brought things to life, Disney, Walt Disney, even the um, Roy Disney from a business side, I think fascinating. Then early stage technologists, the Bill Gates story. Bill
Yeah.
Gates is a huge hero, not just the technology that brought to life and the company that he built from a business perspective, but his commitment to impact.
Hmm.
Um, I'm obsessed with and think is really incredible. This is going to sound really so. A lot of those older technology heroes, I think we've got the younger Silicon Valley tech people. Even the original creators of PayPal
Hmm.
and all those technologies, I really love. Um, this is going to sound really daggy, but people, it's actually I still get very, very touched by the power of people to make small and really large change.
Yeah.
Uh, it's all the classic people that have changed people's lives, all the Mother Teresa's and all of these people that aren't the sexy, tech Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Um, that
Although
that
Elon Musk is pretty sexy now with all of his big companies and the things that he does.
maybe to you, I think while we all go, half the world can go to Mars. I'll stay here and work with everyone else to make Earth really healthy because this planet is perfectly great for us. I think, look, I admire it, but he's not my hero.
Yeah.
My hero are people that use technology for great social impact. That's
Didn't
and
he start
really
PayPal too?
honor that.
I thought he started PayPal, but I could be wrong on that.
I always think of the other guys in there. Yeah, he probably did. For that, yeah, credit. Maybe it's the and look, Tesla's pretty amazing. He's just not personally one of my
So
great heroes.
so how important were some of these to like what you've done?
Um,
You think it's just like
look,
their inspiration has made you do what you do?
I read a lot, so I get inspired by great economists. I get inspired by look. We couldn't exist if the guys if the data storage infrastructure didn't exist. That even
Hmm.
helped Facebook. It all helps each other. The social media infrastructure has helped people wake up. So all the guys that started the social media framework actually love and I'm grateful for that because it's helped people find their voices.
Yeah.
What we're doing is bringing that together in a new framework. So I have huge respect for, and honestly, anyone that's built anything, done anything, I have huge respect because, as we all know, it's hard, it's a tough path, and it's easy to look from the outside and criticize. But you know, all of these things are pretty incredible, honestly.
Awesome. So last question is we the guiding principles, right? So I say let's bring it home for our listeners. What are the top one or two principles or actions you use every day in your business that sort of contribute to your success that maybe you wish you had known when you started your journey 30 years ago?
From a value perspective, it's integrity, constantly asking questions. Are we doing something that has a higher purpose? And then it's honestly, it's all the basic things. Am I getting through the basic things that are going to create a good business? Am I reaching out to the amount of people that I should be? Am I being the kind of leader that I want? Being thankful, being grateful, following up. pushing the boundaries where I can, asking the right questions. I very consciously go through those things each day. What could I have done better? It's asking those questions. Who could I have been better to? What could I have done better? Every single day I ask those questions. And there's always answers and always things I should have done better. But then what am I really grateful for? Those 3 gratitude things I do every morning and every night really make me reflect in a super positive way.
Yeah, and I would imagine that as you get better and better at asking those questions, you start to get better answers, and it really helps push yourself forward.
Absolutely. And for those that I can't answer, I get other people who give me that feedback and help me answer them.
Awesome. So that's basically it for the interview. We do one more thing that I do on every show. I call it the Hero Challenge. Hero Challenge is pretty simple. And it's, do you have someone in your network who you think has a really great entrepreneurial story that could come on and share their story? Who is it, and why do you think they should come share their story?
Oh, I've got so many people. Can I get back to you on that?
Probably, yeah.
Oh, I've got so many people that I think could be good. I don't want to name just one without thinking about the others.
Okay. Well, I'm open to have more than one person come on the show if you have more people that you think would be have a good story to tell on what it is that they're doing or building. Because that's really what we do, why we exist, is to come in and just tell the stories that don't always get told, right? Because people see the end product, they don't see what goes into making it. And it's been really fascinating talking to you and seeing, sort of behind the scenes of what you guys are building, because it's really cool.
Yeah, thank you. From people that are building amazing coffee chains in New York to a lot of people that are making social impact. I've got a lot of people that could be really good on your show. There are some amazing people doing amazing stuff. And I love what you're doing, by the way, Richard. Congrats. It's really fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So thank you so much for being on the show. We've been talking about this the whole time, but I want to make sure people know, who is your, let me just 2 ways, because you have 2 audiences. Who are the ideal brands to come in working with We Are 8? And then if we got listeners who are looking to be sponsored, who are the, what kind of people should be interested, and where can they go to get connected with We Are 8?
Thank you. So we are on the brand side. It's anyone targeting consumers. So all of the brands, anyone targeting consumers. There isn't a brand. Maybe some of the B2B brands don't fit, but really every other brand can fit. And just go to the website to tab their brand, or email me, sue@weare8.com. And for the consumers, just join. If you've got a Facebook page and you want to make a little bit of extra hustle money for being you, just come and join. Download the app and start accepting offers from sponsors.
That's so cool. And so that's on the App Store. I assume it's just We Are 8 for App Store, Google Play Store, anywhere else?
Absolutely. Android and Apple, just We Are 8.
Awesome. That is super cool. So thank you so much for coming on and talking with us today, Sue. This has been a really fascinating interview, especially getting to see someone who's building a company with the kind of social impact that you guys are going to have. Very fascinating. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Really a pleasure. Really appreciate you having me on. Thanks, Richard.